the Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Victoria Pelletier, executive, author, and professional public speaker. Please enjoy Victoria Pelletier. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Victoria Pelletier, executive, author, professional public speaker, and so much more. Welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, I'm super excited to dig into how creativity shows up in your world of public speaking and the executive experience. But before we get there, why don't you share a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Excellent. Sure. Happy to. So I'm a corporate executive. I have been in the world of professional services after getting recruited out of banking that I worked at while I was in university, in a variety of slices from, pure outsourcing to consulting, technology. I currently sit at the epicenter of all of those, working for a technology company leading all things people and performance that supports the tech work that we do. But beyond that, I've sat on multiple boards over the years. I'm extremely passionate around leadership and culture, diversity and inclusion. I've written multiple books. I do public speaking professionally, not just for my job. Wife, mother to now two adult children, which makes me feel very old. Dog mom, fitness fanatic, and wine lover. How's that?
I love it. Oh my gosh. So much to dig into. It's fantastic. I'm so excited to just hear your experience of creativity. But as we step into the creative world, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Um, for me, I mean, that's broad. It's everything from, um, you know, oh, this is such an abused phrase, but thinking outside the box, right?
Mhm.
Like just to doing things differently. Like I'm one who challenges the
Mm.
status quo. I do not want to hear this isn't going to work because we've tried it before, or this is the way we've always done things. It's time to shake
Mhm.
things up. So let's,
Mm.
be innovative and find new ways of working. It's also, I was an actor when I was young. So
Mhm.
for me, not shockingly, am I comfortable standing on stages as a public speaker now.
Sure.
But it's to me in business, in
Mm.
terms of even on a one-on-one, I'm not talking about when talking at conferences, but in the boardroom, talking to people to learn to read them, to engage,
Mm.
to like it was those creative roots and of being an actor that has certainly helped me in the on the business front to um, I'm not creative as it relates to the visual identity, but I hire people who who can help with that. And so how do we bring the different pieces together? That for me is about being creative, about doing new and different, stepping into a zone of discomfort.
I love that. The zone of discomfort. I mean, I truly believe creativity comes alive at the edge of our comfort zone. I want to circle back. You said something about, not wanting to hear, oh, we've tried that before, it doesn't work. What are the ways you work with that more innovative mindset to generate alternative views or different ways of trying maybe the same thing? How do you go about doing that?
Um, well, one, I actually work with human design experts, from a business standpoint to talk about art of the possible, talk about, the outcomes that we're hoping to achieve.
Hmm.
At an individual level, when I'm working with business leaders, many times I even start with like, so tell me what's success look like for you? How is it measured in your environment? And then starting with an outcome in mind and then working backwards. So
Mm.
what if we did this? Like that kind of line of questioning, and also starting with a North Star vision and outcome in mind.
Hmm.
gets those creative juices flowing, and for us to look at doing things again in a new and different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love those, just kind of the reverse engineering or figuring out where we want to end up and how do we get there from where we are. And in terms of kind of the more maybe challenges when you are faced with people who may be more stuck in their ideas, how do you work with that? How do you navigate those maybe more rigid thinking, more challenging moments?
I have faced many of those individuals and circumstances over the years. A lot of it, I think, it stems from fears. We talked about discomfort, right?
Mhm.
So they're afraid to do it. They're like, I'm
Mm,
afraid of losing my job. I'm afraid of looking foolish. I'm afraid
yeah.
of not knowing what to do. And so it's understanding what's preventing them, what's the blocker for them in
Hmm.
forward. So that comes from a place of, again, deep understanding and connection and a real relationship you need to build with people to build trust and safety for them to share with them. So that's how I have approached it. To then and then slowly bringing them, along that journey. Sadly, there's been many instances where, despite those efforts to get them there, I wasn't able to. In
Hmm.
which case, I've had to make some difficult decisions.
Sure.
But not without the investment of some amount of time and investment in them personally to understand what was preventing them from, making that move forward.
That makes sense. I truly appreciate the trust and safety piece you bring up because that is, in my work, the foundation of everything that I do with creativity. That I'm curious, kind of in your work life, but how about your personal life when you yourself face that discomfort? How are you navigating your own challenges?
I I rarely have it, but I'll tell you why. I mean, I come from a very, very traumatic childhood. So
Mhm.
born to a drug addicted teenage mother who was super abusive to me, was in and out of the child welfare system multiple times. Fortunately, I was adopted out of that environment,
Mhm.
but to a lower socioeconomic family which is why I started working at age 11. So
Hmm.
as I share that context with you, that has put me, I've that created significant discomfort for me.
Yeah.
And so I consistently was put in new and different environments and needed to thrive. So I almost thrive to some extent in chaos. It's why I'm not a status quo person when it comes to my own career, or even personally, the things I look to. I'm constantly challenging myself. I get
Mm.
bored
Mhm.
easily. I call myself a multi-potentialite. So it's rare that even in my personal life,
Mhm.
that fear will stop me.
Mm.
The What I've had to get over was the insecurity of failure. That's been my biggest
Mhm.
one because
Mhm.
I was striving to be not perfect. Maybe at some point in my life, I would have wanted to be perfect or as good as I could have been. Fear of rejection, fear of failure was so. Although comfortable in thriving in chaos and new and different, it made me really uncomfortable when I failed at something. So
Mhm.
that's something where I worked, much more so over the years to get comfortable in recognizing that. Um, you know, Failure is the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to progress, and
Mhm.
that reminding myself that one foot in front of the other is progress.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
getting comfortable with what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing a little history and those pieces in your own journey and your own life. And yeah, I think, so many people have that imposter syndrome, fear of failure, internal conflict. Whether we show it on the outside is another story, but yeah, just how to navigate that. You mentioned kind of growing up in the world of theater or acting, and how does that, I mean, yes, you get on stage and you're able to be in front of large groups of people, and it sounds like read people to be able to communicate effectively, but
what are some of maybe the more nuanced pieces that you take from that acting background into the executive world that you work in?
It it's interesting that the move to public speaking probably wasn't as natural, even as I said a little bit earlier in our conversation. Comfort in front of people and on stages, but playing a character in a play on a stage and being Victoria Pelletier speaking on a topic is very different. And so I what I did learn though is I'm not a fan of fake it till you make it,
Hmm.
except when it comes to confidence.
Oh.
So I put on the brave, confident face uh,
Hmm.
in the boardroom. I became an executive at 24. I was the only woman, the youngest by 2 decades. Imposter syndrome is real. And so I put on a brave, confident face. And for many, confidence is equated to competence. And
Sure.
so it was the acting skills and ability that allowed me to put that on, even though I was really uncomfortable on stage being Victoria versus stage being a character. And so I
Mm.
was able to leverage the skills even in the place of, again, great discomfort for me.
Yeah. Thank you for kind of breaking those two pieces down because I think oftentimes people confuse the two and how to, what it is to be yourself in a public space versus a character in a public space and how there are similarities and differences. Yeah, when you are working on projects, what is your process of kind of preparing for the next piece that you're working with? Do you have a routine or a ritual that you go through? What are those pieces?
I have routine and ritual as it relates to my everyday life. There's some
Hmm.
non-negotiables for me, right? I'm a fitness fanatic. I work out 6 days a week. So I
Hmm.
protect the time in my calendar, for example, to do that. But that's actually a time for me as much as I'm focused on my physical body, that time I have with like my headphones on, to think, to listen, to
Mm.
learn, podcasts or books I'll listen to. I do that more now than music, interestingly, while I'm at the
Hmm.
gym. Those are things that I'm doing. But I'm always planning ahead. And so even when I joined the company I'm working for now, before I'd officially started, I was already planning, the
Mm.
potential next move, which drove my husband insane. He's like, you haven't actually started and you're already talking about your next job. Like, and I said to him, there's no date or timeline I'm committing to that, but I
Mm.
have a goal for
Mhm.
myself. And so I'm thinking about how in this new environment do I create time, space, and capacity for me to do what I need to do for that
Mm.
next stage. And
Mhm.
who knows where that is? Like I'm a bit of a, as much as I'm like strategic and intentional around my plans, there's an element of flexibility and go with the flow based upon the changes in my life and
Mhm.
how I feel about something and what's newly interesting to me or I'm feeling passionate about.
Mm. Yeah, I can appreciate having some structure to kind of ground you and then be able to flow in the rest of the space as well. Yeah. For individuals who may struggle with building their own structure or foundation, how would you encourage them to start those pieces?
Um, I think being clear on what the goal, objective, or maybe it's the North Star vision and that
Hmm.
steps or path to get there. Like tracking that, being
Hmm.
really clear. I don't personally need a vision board. It works
Hmm.
for some, and
Yeah.
do you do is what I would say for
Hmm.
for those. But I spend time thinking about my goals for myself, both personally, professionally, fitness, family with my friends, all of those pieces, and being intentional around what steps are going to get me there. And so
Hmm.
I'd say, to your listeners that I think that's really important. Like, what do you want? If it's on a professional journey, I love the Japanese Ikigai philosophy, uh,
Hmm.
and thinking about, what do you enjoy doing? What does the world need? What can you get
Hmm.
paid to do? Like all those aspects and figure out what that intersection is. For me, that's also, I'm really clear on the things I don't enjoy doing.
Hmm.
And so I say no, I delegate or I outsource. those things, again, to create time, space, and capacity for me to focus on and take the steps that are going to move me forward. So I'd say
Yeah.
that to your listeners, that like be strategic, and be intentional about the actions, by the way, the thoughts and the language that you use as well that move you in that direction.
Mm-hmm. For for you in your life when you're, feeling depleted, how do you refill your own cup to be able to get back on stage? Because it can be draining to be on stage in front of people. What are those pieces for you that really revitalize your own internal spark?
Uh, a number of things. And so some of them are, I mentioned just my workout is really important to me. Like
Hmm.
that gives me energy. I do it first thing in the morning and energy throughout the day. The learning that I get during that time. And not during I travel a lot for work. I'm in a global role. And so I also use the travel time to be
Mm.
listening and learning. I'm a huge music lover as well. And so that gives me energy. But then on the flip side of that, because I am an extrovert and I am comfortable on stages, but it's exhausting. And so for me, oftentimes at the end of the week, where I'm on back-to-back conference calls or I'm, out meeting with clients or I'm on stages, I just want to hibernate a little. Like I don't want to talk to anyone. I tell my husband, like, I'm not answering my phone. I do not. First of all, my voicemail says, please text or email me. But I wanted to shut down a little bit. I don't want to think. And if that means I'm like sitting on the lounge chair with a puppy at my feet, like playing a game on my phone, doing a little bit of scrolling, listening to music, like, but not engaging with anyone outside of the house, that's perfect too.
It sounds like a very precious time to that recovery space is really important because, this idea of burnout, if we don't have that balance, is truly something that I think, we hear a lot about, but until you experience it or protect yourself from experiencing it, it's a little elusive. What's your experience with burnout and how do you what would you encourage others to how to protect their time?
It's, I mean, it's real in particular. I think of when my children were younger, like when I took my first executive role, my first child was only 3 months old.
Mm.
And so, being, a wife and a mother, new mother at that, in an executive role, trying to maintain my fitness, like all of those things, like the demands are real. And so, what I've gotten better at, and I mentioned it briefly a few minutes ago, but for me, I am maniacal around protecting the time, the things that are sacred for me, from my workouts to a couple of blocks in my calendar just to get through emails,
Mm.
to learn how to say no. And that's hard for people who want to be liked, don't want to disappoint. Like,
Yeah.
no, if it does not bring me personal or professional joy or value, I say no.
Hmm.
Or there are some things that still must be done, but I learned to delegate or outsource. My biggest joke on that is when I met my husband, I was unfortunately my ex had passed away, so I was a single mother, traveling a lot. I had some support for the kids at home and a cleaning crew that came that did, including my laundry.
Mm.
And when my husband first moved in with us, I think he was happy to have someone clean the house, but doing his laundry, cleaning his underwear, I think for him was, and I was like, babe, let's be clear. Like, laundry is critically important, but it doesn't bring me significant joy in doing it. So we have two options here. I said, you get comfortable with the fact that the cleaners are going to do our laundry, or you do it.
Mm.
And we are together 12 years now, and he still does the laundry to this day, right?
Oh,
Like, so that's how I manage, my burnout, my time, my capacity.
yeah. I love that. Just those distinct pieces of like, if it doesn't bring me joy, I'm not going to do it. But that if you don't want this, then you can do it. And the fact that he was like, sure, that's my,
Right.
I'll take that on. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Well, for people who are maybe kind of just dipping their toes in public speaking or more of that public facing experience, what are some like tips or tools you wish you'd had when you started?
There's start small would be it. And so even for me, when I made the move out of, I said I got recruited out of banking, which was, a business to consumer
Mm-hmm.
business. When I made the move into business to business and needing to show up at conferences, the I'm an extrovert now. I think I probably secretly was always an extrovert as a child, even though I was quite quiet. But making small talk, walking up to strangers and needing to meet and engage, that was really not comfortable for me. So that's even where some of it started. And so that whole, just put on this mask of confidence and just do
Mm-hmm.
it. Just you do it over time. The more I did it, the more confident I got doing it. Now it's actually second nature to me. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking to strangers in the elevator, drives my husband crazy. But that's how I am now. But so it was just baby steps and doing it time and time
Mm-hmm.
again. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it came to public speaking, as I said, yes, I was comfortable on stages in front of audiences, but speaking as Victoria was less comfortable. So for me, I needed to make sure I knew my content. I don't want to read from notes. The ability, just knowing what I'm going to talk about doesn't mean I'm memorized necessarily. Like even if I've got a slide deck and a comfort screen, there might be a couple bullet points that are like, oh yeah, I want to make sure I tell that story or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But otherwise, knowing my content, it, gives me confidence. Right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not worried I'm forgetting something. I'm familiar with it. So I don't like many years ago, I was asked to be a speaker for a cybersecurity event. Like that's not my background.
Mm-hmm.
I think they asked me to MC it, slightly different than being a speaker, but they wanted me to do a small talk, and I'm like that's not my expertise, so I'm not comfortable doing that. How do I weave that into an element of something I can talk about? So
Mm-hmm.
that I'd say for your listeners is important. Baby steps, try it. Start small and smaller groups, and then for those who desire to get on stages, make sure you know your topic, but also make sure it's relevant. I see many people who want to be speakers
Mm-hmm.
because they think it, pays well. It takes years to get to the point where you can, do it to make a living or, or even as a appropriate side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but learn the skills as well. Like you need to engage with the audience. People, you want them connected to you and not staring at their phones the entire time they sit in the
Absolutely. Well, Victoria, this has been such a pleasure chatting with you and hearing all of these pieces of creativity in your own life. I have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
audience. Um, it it's going with the flow. It's trying things that scare the heck out of me, things that like are exciting and different, and I might never have done before because you don't know, like it could become the next new passion for you.
I love that. I all of that. I can feel that in my own body as you're talking about it and the things that scare you and excite you and that you're learning. So, well, thank you again for taking the time to join me. If people want to learn more about the work you do, the things you have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
The easiest place is my website, which is victoria-pelletier.com. I'm sure you'll have that in the show notes so they don't need to figure out the spelling. And then if they want to link out from there to the other social platforms I'm on to follow me, they can do that.
Perfect. Well, as you said, I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. I have learned so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.